It's very good to be with you again. It's been since the end of June, I think. I'm not sure. I was just about ready to go out to the Northwest to see family when I was here last. And I did get to see my mom and family members and just had a wonderful visit with all of them. Been camping. How many of you been camping so far this summer? Ah, good one. All right. Camping is a good thing in the summer. Get out and listen to the stars talk to us, especially during the time of all these meteors, right? And now, you know, I can just tell by going into the store. They tried to fool us and do it really early, but school's coming. And I figure we're always in school. We're always learning with each other. One of the things that's occurred for me most recently is some significant experiences with some people that are doing a great work on this planet, in my opinion. And when I was here in June, I had just finished a retreat with a man by the name of Jeff Carrera. Jeff Carrera was a part of a community of people that created with Andrew Cohen the Enlightenment Next magazine. Some of you may remember that magazine from years ago. It's no longer in print. And then just about 2 weekends ago, I was with a woman by the name of Patricia Albert. Patricia Albert is somebody that for those of you that remember Werner Erhard and EST and LifeSpring and the Human Potential Movement that started in the 70s and just had this upsurge, this kind of upswell coming out of the 60s of individuals having really self-awakening and finding out, what am I doing that's really messing me up here? And that's my version of what it was. Patricia Albert worked with Werner Erhard for 20 years. She now does something that she calls the evolutionary collectives. And she is, in fact, bringing people together. There's a hub on the West Coast, and there's a hub on the East Coast. There's a hub that's starting to form right here in the Midwest because there have been enough people that have been reaching out and asking whether we could create one. I went over to Renaissance Unity when she presented for an evening session there, and some of the people that were there, and Jim Lee, the minister there, and his excitement about this. So my short version of all these experiences is to say that I've heard a real deep, abiding calling. Let's use that old language. It's a drawing to be with you and to be with congregations. I was with congregations out in the Northwest. I'll be in Canada in October. And to be an emissary for the next evolution of unity. So for those of you that have been in unity for years and years, you're probably wondering what that means. For those of you that are new here today, you maybe could care less. Just tell me something, because I remember what this was like coming into a unity ministry the first time, and my life wasn't going real well. Could there be something possibly here in this spiritual community that might make a difference for the pain and suffering that I'm dealing with? So what I'm going to do today is attempt to share with you something that I feel like stretches all the way back to the late 1800s, because it was at that time when Darwin was coming on the scene and people were hearing more and more about science, and they were beginning to really feel like, you know, we're just an ape in trousers, and it's all going to go back into the great void of, you know, the great Big Bang theory. It's all just going to go back to something. There was a real depression that was happening in people that were spiritually motivated to show up in spiritual communities. And in that context, we could say that some of the spiritual understandings that had been around for thousands of years came forward in a way that we now might look back and see that it was happening on this part of the planet. It was called the Transcendental Movement. And it jumped over and came over here to the West. And then we have unity and religious science and Christian science and divine science and the I Am Society. We have the Transcendentalists. We have these people beginning to anchor, even within Christianity, this truism that we are not separate, that we are not separate from each other and from that which we call God. This was a heresy in Christianity at that time. It was. However, in Christianity at this time, we can see the evolution beginning And it's been beginning for a number of years, and it's coming through many of the denominations in Christianity. And what is transpiring in this time, in this consciousness of what we are able to do, and let's remind ourselves that it used to be that we had very few rights, that there were kingdoms, that we had no rights. Women were property. Children were sold early on. Now, New Zealand has passed a law for animal rights. So if we wanted to try to compare the time of Jesus, when Jesus walked the earth, and where we are now, I'm sharing with you that we are in a very different paradigm. A paradigm is really our collective understanding of what is. And the what is shifting underneath us like shifting sands. Because that what is moving into connectivity like we have never been able to see in physical ways. We are connecting through the use of the internet. We are globally connected in so many ways. The conversations, the interactions that my young sons have when they're playing games and when they're also off to college, as my son will be off to college this Thursday. So I'm excited to share with you that that connectivity means a lot to us personally, when we feel very subdued and depressed, maybe about what's going on in the world, when we can see so much of what seems like backwards thinking about what we're doing to the earth as we develop and make corporations and companies. But in that context, we can find the news that is not the news. And it is individuals and entrepreneurs and whole countries that are making changes so swift now that it just is amazing to us. What is happening in the realm of health and what is starting to go into the places that we call our hospitals, we can only hope that that swiftness will occur there also. I'm encouraged and I'm excited. I feel that in unity, and those of us that have been a part of these movements for many, many years, we are poised to be about an evolution of spirit. An evolution of spirit. That we might know together that what we are able to encounter in our own self today means so much to the whole of the great body that is God. We may not want to even fathom that when we're just figuring out how to pay an unexpected bill. But I will be one voice to us that will say that when we are willing to show up and navigate those hurdles and navigate them with a consciousness and move through them without getting hooked by the unexpected bill, without getting hooked by the body symptom, without getting hooked by those meetings with people that we work with where you have somebody coming in rigid, unwilling to see something in a new way, and we're thinking, what am I here for? When we no longer get hooked but navigate spiritually in those environments and in those circumstances, we are far more able to wake up that conscious awareness of God and express it without attachment to outcome. And to know that what we do is absolutely influencing the whole. How many of you years ago heard that little story of the study that was done on monkeys, and they're on this island, and you remember this? I see something, yeah, remember this? This was really huge for a lot of us long ago, hearing something so simple but so profound that as one monkey and the little baby monkey, they start using a little tool. And then almost seemingly overnight, the whole island is using the tool, but the island nearby started using the tool. It was suggestive of the fact that when one overcoming, when one new understanding, when one creative solution comes forward, that the great body of who we are, we're touched by that. I am told that this is true of many inventions, that we actually now have enough connectivity that we can see that people will apply to register their inventions, and you can almost see it across the planet like this, that it's happening that quickly. So that as we make those profound awakenings within ourselves as we deal with things that challenge us individually, we are influencing the whole. It would be like this. Here's how I saw it recently in kind of a more meditative state. Imagine electricity right now. Electricity, it's been there all along. Somebody finally figures out there's electricity, right? Okay? And then we have light bulbs, right? And we have circuits and everything. And that the electricity is being channeled through those circuits. And you have all these switches. You can turn the light on in this room, and you can turn on this, and you can turn on that. You can utilize that electricity in many different ways, correct? So what I'm suggesting to you and I, though, is that what we've been doing with that God energy is we're turning it on in the room of health. I'm talking about my pain and suffering. I want to find out more about how to get healthy. I'm turning a light on over here in this relationship with so-and-so that I'm just so challenged by. I'm turning a light on over here, figuring out what I'm going to do for a job. I'm turning a light on over here. What do we do with this facility? How do we make ends meet with this facility? I'm turning a light on over here. And I'm suggesting to you that we're just turning lights on in little rooms, and we're not going to the source of the power. That we have become so focused on ourselves and figuring out how to turn on these lights in these different parts of our own experience that we forget the source. And that what we started with all those years ago in the Transcendental Movement, in this Unity Movement, in all the other New Thought movements was that we are one with Source. And that as this generation is called the me generation, the kind of selfie generation, we've got to shift by what we're doing to the we. So that not only what we do in meditation, and this is what Patricia Albert is bringing out, the mutual awakening process, that we might actually tap into a whole other experience of meditation. That I cried. I thought, wow, this is what we've been prepared for. Mutual awakening. That yes, will show up in our relationship with God. Yes, we're going to be tempted to say, all right, God, I've got this bill. My air conditioner doesn't work this year. Does anybody else have this problem? Doesn't work. It is hot and humid in my house. My old parquet floor in this 60s ranch house is like this. Anybody ever know that? You don't put parquet in around here. They tell you this nowadays. It was great then. But, you know, what do you do in those kinds of experiences? Well, you think about $2,000 for a new air conditioner, and then you call the people and they come out and they say, well, yeah, you don't really want to do that nowadays. You want to do one of those heat pumps, you know, because they really do the job of both your furnace and your air conditioner, and it's far more efficient. You're going to save so much money, and that's $10,000. And then I just kind of pull my hair out and just decide to do nothing. That was last summer when it was hot and humid also. So what do we do when we face those kinds of big and little problems? I tell you that I feel that what Jesus was saying all those years ago, this amazing teacher that was so misunderstood in so many ways, not my will, thy will. Really? Is that how we're going to deal with hot, humid houses? Is that really how we're going to deal with a body that's given us a lot of problems? Is that really how we're going to deal with relationships where we feel so oppressed in a planet? Not my will, thy will. What the heck does that mean? It means that we go within and we shift in our energy pattern from wanting to light up this room over here that has to do with figuring out how to pay for an air conditioner. We go within and we keep going, turning to the source of all power that is everywhere present, that has no problem putting together solutions creatively. In fact, they're already put together. That which we are seeking is already seeking us. And when we are able to do that within us, to go to the heart of hearts, because that's the true guidance. Turn to God. Don't have to understand God. In fact, that's the whole point. The whole point is to go flip that switch that says, what the heck is God? What do I believe? What's my understanding? What's that greater than something that's happening? Could I become still for a little bit that I might actually tune in to something that's far greater than what I've been doing up to this point? And could we in unity do that? Could we as a global family start doing that? Tune in to something that's so much greater than what we have conceptualized. This is how God works. I have a simple way of talking about this. You can cut the cake in so many different ways. I don't know where I ever got this expression, but it's kind of my funny, silly little way to talk about that which I call God. I'm not talking about God separate. I'm not talking about God personality. I'm just talking about this energy and how this energy is also connected. So I get a phone call. Hi, do I remember you don't have air conditioning? Well, my wife's parents just had 3 window units and they just got central air and we're getting rid of our old window unit. Do you want a window unit? Be right over. That was right 24 hours before that really hot, humid weather hit. And it hit, didn't it? That's how energy works, that's everywhere present. It's not dependent on one circuit over here lighting up the room called, how do we handle the heat? We open ourselves and we move in a way that is expansive, not contractive. Why settle for 110? Why settle for 220? Why? In our heart of hearts, there is that which is energetically drawing us into a whole new understanding, a whole new comprehension, an understanding that it is already solved. Yeah, it's already solved. Now, I love this other quote. Faith can move mountains. Bring your shovel. Maybe you've heard me say that before. Bring your shovel means dig through one's everyday life. Get to the prayer chair. Get to the meditation chair. I mean, really, how important is it that I salvage 20 overripe crookneck squash? Do I really invest hours yesterday on baking them and figuring out how to put them, I don't know, in the freezer? No. I might take a few and stick them in the oven and figure out they tasted horrible, and then the rest go to the compost. You see, when the priorities are clear about what we're doing with our time, this is our resource. This is our resource. Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, sat in a chair every day for 2 years with a picture of Jesus in another chair, opening herself up to a new understanding because she was at a session maybe like this. She did not hear, I am a child of God and therefore did not inherit sickness. That's just what we say about her 100 years later. She experienced something that shifted her thinking from thinking being told she was going to die in a few months. Something happened in her, and that's what we want to go to. It's that heart of hearts. It's that heart of hearts where we just surrender. I remember in my community years ago, this is a church my husband and I pioneered. You got to meet Matthew, I understand. You enjoyed him. And we pioneered this church, and then we left it. after about 7 years. There were some pretty major things happening in our life, plus a brand new baby. And then I returned a year later. Just how God works. Returned a year later. The ministry didn't own its own building at that point, and it was meeting in a Masonic temple. And the group at that point could afford to pay $400 a month to rent the upper floor of the Masonic temple. Okay? The upper floor had this kind of big sanctuary, and it was great space. It had a stage, and the lower floor was like a big multi-purpose room with a stage and a piano. But at that point, without a minister, a year in transition, which this ministry is, by the way, a year in transition without minister, that ministry was affording $400 a month for just one of the floors. And that was all that they could really see that they could afford. The energy was so low in the group when I returned, they couldn't put together a potluck. So we quit trying to do a potluck. We went out to lunch. We began to pray together. We began to just be with each other. We began to appreciate what we did have. We began to practice so much of acknowledging God's right here. God didn't go away. And at one point, the board president had sent out a variety of people to look at other spaces to meet, and they weren't going to work. They all cost more than $400. And that board of trustees could not see that it was possible to do anything better than what we were doing with $400. So then we had a professional interior design person, and we went to the masons, and could we put in curtains, and could we paint? Nope, they weren't interested. They were going to refinish the downstairs wood floor for the second time in 2 years or something. It's like, okay, this is the answer. So we got to come together. So we brought together everybody, and we sat in our sanctuary. A woman by the name of Linda Fromm came and was working with us. And she was really asking us what was in the heart of our hearts. We wanted to create space for the children. We wanted to create a dedicated office space again, because I was using my office, my home office, which was out in the country. We got so clear about we just wanted to be together and just minister. It was just this heartfelt meeting. We finished the meeting. We had this whole list of things that we were just clear about. Within 24 hours, a woman by the name of Helen Schofield called me up and said, I understand that you're looking for another space. I think you ought to go talk to the Episcopal Church. She was in both of those communities as a prayer chaplain, our community, their community. I said, okay. So we called over there. And I want you to know, for $400 a month, we had a whole sanctuary access every Sunday. We had a kitchen. We had an office. We had 5 youth rooms. We had a big, huge parking lot. And we were even on the bus line for $400 a month. I have never forgotten that. When we got to our heart of hearts, when we talk about making decisions in the heart of hearts, where we love God, where we want to believe in God, where we want to know God, where we want to understand God more, where we want to know that God is more powerful than that pain in our body, than that extra bill. When we want to know that God is at work and there is a will in this ministry, that it is already work, already solved. When we want to know that as 7 billion people on a planet, we go to the heart of hearts where we are able to let go in a new way. So I want to finish this morning, even though I've got lots to say. I want to finish with this from Eckhart Tolle. Artistic creation, sports, dance, teaching, counseling. Mastery in any field of endeavor implies that the thinking mind is either no longer involved at all, or at least is taking second place. Mastery. I want to hear that mastery of an Olympic athlete that goes beyond the thinking mind. A congregation that can go beyond the thinking, figuring out mind. A parent with a little one that can go beyond the thinking, figuring out mind and connect with the power and presence of God. Knows that that power and intelligence is greater than you and yet one with you, and it takes over. There is no decision-making process anymore. Spontaneous right action happens, and you are not doing it. Jesus said, I of myself can do nothing. It is the Father within me that does the work. Mastery of life is the opposite of control. You become aligned with the greater consciousness. It acts, it speaks, it does the works. And so it is for all of us. So it is.